this point, we move on to item 7.1, which is student reports. We'll begin with Newark Junior High School.
Good evening. I'm Tad Kawabata, the ASB president at NJHS.
And I am Shane Nelms, the ASB vice president at NJHS.
Many new cool things are happening at NJHS.
With the upcoming holidays, the leadership class has organized a Toys for Tot toy drive and a winter carnival with lots of fun seasonal games for students to participate in. If you would like to donate toys, you can bring them to the room C5 at NJHS or the student store after school.
Our previous staff versus student competitions were very successful. The hula hoop contest was funny and the pie eating contest was amazing to watch. With those successes, we are planning another student versus staff competition, Rap-A-Staff. Teams of students with the staff member will face off against each other to see who can rap their teacher first.
Adding on to the carnival and Toys for Tot, our leadership class will be selling holiday grants to students. The proceeds will be used to fund additional staff versus student competitions later in the year.
To continue to improve our school's environment, we will be organizing an additional No Place for Hate school-wide activity.
Today, our leadership class did the third bullying presentation of the year. These presentations are used to raise awareness about bullying and many other topics too.
Our Cougar Parent Club brought up the topic of installing student lockers at our school. This is a topic that the Parent Club wants to address to us in person. We are scheduled to hear their proposal when we come back from winter break.
Another topic of interest brought to us by the Parent Cougar Club was how we could increase parent involvement in our school and community. We intend to get into this more when we get back from break, but as for now, we are considering hosting a family lunch day where students would bring their parents to school for lunch and show them around. You must be wondering who this is on the side of me. Well, we have some exciting and not so exciting news this month at NJHS. This month, I will be moving to Houston, Texas, so therefore, I am resigning my position as vice president. Here's the new NJHS vice president.
Hello, my name is Joshua Limsiaco, and I am the new ASB vice president. And I am happy to be here at the great evening. Thank you very much. And yeah.
May I say something? I wanted to thank you for the time you served and the time that you spent with us here. And Houston's very fortunate to have you coming to them. So,
thank you very much. McGregor.
Good evening, Superintendent Sanchez and cabinet members and board members. My name is Joe, and I'm a senior at Bridgepoint. The two peer educators hosted an activity at the Great American Smokeout. We had a football throwing contest, a musical chairs, pie eating, and hands-free painting contest. We also made posters promoting being tobacco-free. Our group training has finished. We need to set a date for visiting Newark Junior High School. Congratulations to Mr. Tiano's geometry class for bringing in the most donations for the holiday food drive. They were treated pizza by our principals. Congratulations to early graduates Giovanni Robinson, Christina Doolittle, and Jesus Morales. First quarter's awards will be held Friday. Awards will be given for GPA 3.0s or higher, perfect attendance, and most credits earned.
Great, thank you. Newark Memorial.
Okay, so first of all, we still have our canned food drive still going on, taking place in all of our third period classes. That will be donated all to Love Newark, and the winning class, third period class, will get a pizza party sponsored by ASB. And then, let's see, Chef, he is also collecting socks and underwear for the homeless. So I know a lot of people have been donating towards that so we could give back to the community. That's been very important. Leadership is currently planning our Winter Spirit Week days. For a change, it will not be a battle of the classes, but all the classes will actually be unified with the same Spirit Week days, which will also always contain our annual Spirit Week assembly for winter and possibly a basketball game, staff versus students. So make sure to check that out and come by. Right now, our latest NMHS drama production is called Check Please. Performances are this week, December 1st, 2nd, 8th, 9th at 7 p.m. Matinee will be at 5 p.m., $15 for VIP, and then general seating is $10 and students with ID $5. VIP gets front row seating and one complimentary item from the concession stand, so make sure you get free food if you pay for VIP. There was a student preview show if you wanted to check that out. Let's see, Interact and Speakeasy and Speech and Debate, all three clubs I'm in, we have been hosting our first ever Expressions Over Espressos at Slapface Coffee, which is located in Fremont. It's pretty much like an open mic night where anyone at the school is able to come and just have, they can talk about topics that they want, are really heavy on their hearts, have poetry, sing songs, have instruments. It was really cool because we had some adults actually come, and one, he spoke French and he started singing in French and had a trumpet. It was really amazing to see all the really different backgrounds our students got to experience. And then, let's see, BSU is having a potluck this Thursday, and I know that they're going to be discussing a lot. They're going to have a very special guest speaker. If you would like to come to that, it would be really important to them. Congratulations to the varsity girls soccer team. They defeated Granada High School for the first time in 10 years. That was a very big deal for them. With just a score of 1-0, it was a very tight game from Brianna Santillan, assisted by Laura Fuentes. Let's see, the Rich Swift Memorial Ironman Wrestling Duels took place this last Saturday, which included the very first ever girls duels tournament, if not in the state, then in our whole country. We had very good teams come all around California, and our very own Newark Memorial girls ended in 3rd place as a team. And we also had Emily Patnode and Ariana Pereira win all of their matches throughout all of the duels that we had, so they got awarded for championships. Student Athletic Advisory Council is taking part of hosting our 2nd annual Christmas banquet, which is this Saturday from 5 to 9 p.m. It is called Come Unity, like come and then unity together. This all started with Barry and Jasenia Taimani. They pretty much decided to get a group of youth together every Saturday at the Second Chance Shelter and make breakfast. I'm one of the few that goes every single Saturday morning when I don't have tournaments and makes breakfast for these people. And really, it started off with just that, but it led to hosting birthday parties and baby showers, and now our end of the year huge bang bash where we are giving gifts to these people and these families. There are 49 residents in total, which include families and friends just that could be sitting in this very room next to you and you wouldn't know. And it's really awesome that we get to host them again this 2nd year, and our youth is pretty much starting to run it itself, where we are just giving them presents, feeding them like amazing food. Santa's gonna have a guest experience, Santa. But yeah, that is going to be a huge epic event, and it would be great if you guys could stop by and just see all of the great holiday spirit that takes place there. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. On to 8.1, the school.
Can I ask Claire, could you give the couple dates again? What is the date for the family? Do you have any that you're talking about?
This is this Saturday from 5 to 9 p.m. It takes place in the Cougar Commons.
Thank you. On to 8.1, School Spotlight, Newark Memorial High School.
Principal Wirt is here.
Good evening. Hello. Good evening, Superintendent Sanchez and Executive Board. Hello, Dr. Wong, Assistant Superintendent Salinas, Mr. Richards, President Nguyen, Nancy Thomas, Board Member Mr. Preciado, Board Member Mrs. Crocker, and Student Member Sierra. This evening, I'm here to spotlight some wonderful things happening at Newark Memorial High School, and I have several students here to share their highlights, their excellent work, and I wanted to recognize several students this evening and the work that they have been working on and have done a stellar job. So, I'd like to first begin with the Optimus recognitions. And I'd like to call up Brandon De La Cruz and Jacqueline Arcos. The Optimus Club recognized Jacqueline Arcos. I'm going to start with Jacqueline first. Did you bring up your plaque? Share. Stand and share your plaque and share with the audience. Jacqueline was recognized for her excellence and in demonstrating school pride in various areas. She is proactive and has demonstrated and volunteered in many groups and organizations. She served at as the basketball captain, served as class president 2014-17, nominated for her leadership, participated in clubs such as Puente, Mecha, Ballet Folklorico, Tahitian Dance, the Leadership Conference, attended the LOL Leadership Conference since 2014. She's a member of EDGE and has volunteered many community service hours with elementary schools, basketball, and tutoring. So kudos to Jacqueline, and thank you for your dedication and your excellence demonstrating Cougar pride. Brandon De La Cruz has also been recognized for his excellence and demonstrating Cougar pride. Brandon has served as an ASB president, president of the California Scholarship Federation, vice president of REACH, served as student advisory board on as an education delegate, participated 3 years on the track and field, sport of track and field. He has volunteered 300 plus community service hours and maintains a 4.2 GPA and has been honored as a principal on the principal's honor roll. So Brandon De La Cruz, thank you for your excellence and demonstrating Cougar pride at Newark Memorial High School. Congratulations. On and off track data. When I was hired as the principal of Newark Memorial High School, one of the areas that we have been focusing on is the F rate, the percentages of F rates that our students, and our focus this evening, this is the 9th grade data for F rates. Last year, our work, and this year our work has been dedicated to finding ways as a staff to address the F rate rates and come up with ways to help our students demonstrate excellence and increase achievement and success academically. What we have here is a 6-year span, and what you'll notice is that the F rate data is at its lowest this past school year, 2017-18. These F rate data represents our quarter grades. The staff has been working diligently looking at the data, analyzing it, and finding ways that we can provide academic support to improve the achievement and decrease the achievement gap. Over the course of 6 years, if you notice, this year it's at its lowest. 73% of our freshmen have no Fs. They are on track to graduate. So what we've done a couple of things. As a result of our ongoing data analysis as a staff with my administrative team and the leadership at Newark Memorial High School, we identified a couple of new things. For example, we now have grade 9 academic success assemblies, semester 1 and semester 2. We developed a kudos letter to the 344 freshmen who have successfully passed all their classes and are on track to graduate, and informed parents and celebrated with them. At the same token that we identified these students, we also provided them some suggestions and continue to encourage them to take advantages of the services and programs at Newark Memorial High School. Those students who have 1 to 2F, approximately 19%, and students with 3 plus or more Fs, approximately 10 to 11%, they received a "we're concerned about your student grades" letter. The sole idea behind that letter was to notify parents, get parents to contact student counselors, set up meetings with teachers, and talk to your students about ways that you can improve your F grades. What we did, we sent out these what we call on-track, off-track letters to families the week prior to Thanksgiving. And I am working closely with the guidance counselors, doing outreach to the families that we have identified with these Fs, and we're working tirelessly to catch them sooner and involve parents so that we can help them to be successful. Some of the things that we have beefed up, if you will, is our tutorial support. Last year, we were very concerned about the minimal time that we can offer our students to provide them the academic support that they needed. We conducted a survey and developed a tutorial matrix, and we saw that there just wasn't enough time in a day for teachers to attend professional development, trainings, department meetings, staff meetings, et cetera, and service our students. So thanks to Dean Gordon and AP Home and AP Meyer, we have researched flex time. And this is the first year that we have implemented flex time on Wednesdays and Thursdays, block days, from 11:07 to 11:52 to provide these students time to attend study halls with their teachers to get the assistance that they need to assist them and support them with their academics. We are currently in phase 2 of flex time or pause, and we will be moving in. What happened? We will be moving into phase 3. We hope into January. We have also extended library study hall hours Mondays through Thursday, 3 to 4 p.m. And we are currently working with several math teachers who will make themselves available during those hours to assist students in the area of math and other areas to help them help them improve their grades. Champion character sessions. I have to acknowledge the athletic department, Coach Hess and athletic director Rachel Koholi'i. They have been doing lots and lots of work with our athletes and other students during the champion character sessions. And I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Maria Grunt, who runs a program called SACNAS at Ohlone Community College, who is providing us college students who are interested in the field of education and will be tutoring our students. We're in the process of getting them fingerprinted and approved. I'd like to share with you this evening work done by MCA. It's a Cougar Cable mix that's going to give you a taste and a flavor about what's happening at Newark Memorial High School in the areas of athletics, spirit at Newark Memorial High School, more information on what students are doing in terms of pause proactive workshops, which is our flex time, homecoming, and other exciting events that take place at the high school.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's D_Reyes taking in Charles' spot for today. You know, he's sick. First up, we got our boy Mr. Gordon with our new interview. Let's get it. Ben, you already know what to do.
Well, who came up with the idea of pause? I did, actually. I saw this Cheetos thing, said pause, Mr. Holm and I, we thought, well, we got to do something about that. A way for kids to be able to do their homework. So pause, proactive workshops, pause, proactive workshops. What kind of changes would we be looking to make if this schedule doesn't work out? The goal is for a full rotation or migration, as they call it. So you can pick the class you need to go to. For example, if you're failing just one class, you need to go to that class. You get to choose, or your teacher helps you choose to go to that class.
All right, next up, homecoming game, you know, with your boy, Ben.
What's up, it's your boy, D_Reyes. You guys don't know me behind black out here, it's not right there. You know what it is, you know what it is. We out here, homecoming game, you know.
D_Reyes.
now. Lastly, we got Mr. Hacker and his class showing us what's up in Project Lead the Way. Ben, pull it up right now.
Hey, I'm Mr. Hacker. I'm teaching Principles of Engineering in grade 704. And today, you guys are filming their compound machine builds. Some students have built coffee stirrers using motors and gears. And other students have built machines using pulleys along with inclined planes. And some are using wheels and axles. So the idea was for them to use 2 or 3 simple machines to form a compound machine to accomplish a task. So most of the students, they really enjoyed it, and it really provides a real life kind of application in the classroom. So, thanks.
All right, that's what we have for today. So see you all next time in the next episode with loads more new stuff, especially with the return of Black Guy Fieri. See y'all next time when Charles is sick again. Let's go.
Shut up and sit down.
So I had asked MCA students, the producers, to attend this evening. Is Charles Rochelle, Daniel Rodriguez, Victor Soria, Christian Rommel Corpus, and Ben Tran. Are you here this evening? Okay, so they couldn't make it, but I just wanted to thank them and their MCA teacher, Mr. Cliff Ingham, for their work in the production of this video. I also invited our PLTW engineer projects, Project Lead the Way engineer, student engineers, and I would like to introduce to you this evening Cesar Castillo, Nehal Almaman, Nathan Tang, and Nolan Chai. Can you please come up and demonstrate? And that they not only are going to share with you their projects, but they're going to demonstrate aspects and the mechanical components of their projects.
Hello, Superintendent and staff. My name is Nahal. That is Caesar. Nathan, raise your hand. And that's Nolan. And we're going to be your representatives for the PLTW program. And Ms. Huerta told us to keep it short, so I'm like, but basically, if you don't already know what the PLTW program is, it's Project Lead the Way, and basically it's kind of like an introduction to engineering for students in high school. And this whole program starts freshman year in a class called IED, which stands for Introduction to Engineering, Engineering Design, yeah. And then we are sophomores, and that's a junior, but I don't know. I guess he decided to take it as a junior. But it's a 10th grade course, but he's special. And then, yeah. Basically, that's the second step of Project Lead the Way, and I believe that's the last course, right? You can transition into like
there's a
aerodynamics.
third course at Mission Valley ROP. I believe it's civil engineering. So students who elect to take a third year of engineering will take a class in Mission Valley ROP.
Yeah, so today we're going to be demonstrating 2 projects that we already did. One is a circuit board, correct?
Right.
And then the other is a simple machine that we worked on.
Compound.
Right? Compound machine, my bad.
So you guys want to go first?
Sure. Yes. Okay. This is our compound machine, which composes of a gear train, a wheel and axle system, and a pulley system. The application of this compound machine is to open up a computer lid fully. Actually, we should demonstrate.
Yeah, sure.
Hold on. 3, 2, 1.
So,
as you can see, the string that is attached to the computer lid would ride onto the pulleys and eventually coil onto the wheel that is attached at the end.
Alright, so Nahal and I worked on an electrical circuit. So basically what this is more, hold it up for you guys. It's a more advanced version of what we've been working on in POE. Essentially what it is a battery, a 9-volt battery, connected to one diode that then disperses electricity to 2 separate chains of diodes. So as I trigger this button, one diode will turn on. As I hit other buttons, respective diodes will turn on. As soon as I let go of the red diode, everything turns off. So this is basically the thing that sets it all in motion. If power is not flowing through the red diode, nothing else turns on. So the red diode is kind of a prerequisite for the yellow and green, and I have a matching schematic to go along with it for the board to see. Yeah, pass it along. I also brought on a multimeter that we use. This is commonly used in the electronics industry to diagnose issues with the circuit. So just as a test, Nahal, can you come over here and hold the multimeter up? So I'll take a quick voltage reading. As I connect. Yeah, hold the switch too. The simple diode, the red one, the front of the red. Yeah. Should be triggered. No, it's not. No, the leads are jacked with it. I'm pretty sure you usually. Huh? Yeah. So on average, it won't. Because of the impreciseness of electronic equipment that isn't industry standard, I'll commonly read something like 8.92 volts with a typical 9-volt battery. So it'll be something lower than or greater than the voltage of the battery, but it won't exactly match at 9 volts.
Usually lower.
Yeah, usually lower. But this and a variable direct circuit power supply is what we use in POE to test our circuits. And make sure that everything is up to speed. So we use multimeters to test connections at different parts in the circuit just to make sure everything is connected correctly. If it's connected incorrectly, we use the multimeter to figure out where everything's going wrong. So that's all we have for you today.
Any questions? Because we went over everything super.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you to our future engineers and to our Project Lead the Way teacher, Mr. Matt Hacker. Please stand, Mr. Hacker. You're doing a great job. And the last thing I want to share with you is something new. This began on Friday, December 1st. Thank you to IT, Larry Simon. Parents are receiving an update, a mailer, Parent View mailer, every Friday. And this is what it's going to look like. They're going to get an update on student grades, student homework, upcoming assignments, and attendance. So this is critical to our work. This is critical to involving our parents. This is critical to increasing the achievement at Newark Memorial High School. We've been working very hard. We're not done. And are we satisfied? Never. We're not going to stop to work diligently and do what's necessary to help our students be successful and raise their grades. So this is just another step involving families. Communication is important, and we're always inviting families to come to the high school, meet with your counselors, meet with your administrators, and brainstorm ways that we can help your student be successful. And last but not least, just some upcoming events. I'm not going to read all of them to you. You'll get an all-call from me every Friday. I send one. And but these are upcoming events taking place this week and next week. And we're done. Thank you for allowing us to share all of the wonderful things happening at Newark Memorial High School. There's much more. Happy holidays, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Huerta.
I'm going to leave you with a copy of the letters that we send out, the kudos letters and the work concern letters, so you can take a look at it at your leisure.
Great. Thank you very much. Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Ms. Crocker.
Mrs. Martha?
Yes.
Would you go back to the notice that goes to the parent? Talk a little bit about that in terms of how does it get to the parent? And are all of the teachers on board in terms of giving a weekly grade? Is this a universal thing?
The academic support systems?
No, the grade, the report that goes out, second to the last one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
The view.
The update.
Parent view. Okay.
Now, is that on email?
It's on email. And we sent out our first batch. And how many parents received the letters? I think you said 1,500 emails, and they have been read. 1,500 went out. Friday, there was a little glitch, and then they continued to send out the rest on Monday. Interestingly, and people in TV land, I hope they're listening, our families, 133 families need to update their email address. It wasn't working. So I met with my office manager, my office staff team today, and we're going to work on that and get those parents to submit a working email address.
So the teachers are 100% in terms of giving updates, so that the updates that they get are current for each class?
Yes. We shared this information with them at our staff meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good question.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, on to item 9 the 9 series, which is the annual organization of the board. We will go through this process now, but I believe this will take into effect at the January meeting. Right. And so 9.1, which is the appointment or election of the new president. Is there a motion? Ms. Crockett?
Okay, I would like to nominate Nancy Thomas. In the past, we've had a rotation that's gone, okay. And we don't feel that the president's got any more power than anybody else, that it's a matter of the president is there to set up the agenda and to make sure the communication goes, that all board members are sort of equal in terms of their power. She runs the meeting, sets up the agenda. I'm hoping that with the agenda that we will have 2 people setting up all the agendas every time, so that there will be one. With that in mind, I'd like to nominate Nancy Thomas.
And I'll second that motion. No further discussion? Is there discussion? Okay, please vote.
I don't think it's
No.
advisory.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, I thought I voted.
yeah, you did. 4 ayes. Thank you very much.
I
Congratulations.
would like to thank my board colleagues, and I agree that it would be great to have two of us on the agenda setting meetings. And I apologize for my wrist
All right.
making noise. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. 9.2, the clerk, and following the rotation system, I would like to nominate Member Preciado to ascend to that position.
I'd like to second that.
Okay. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. Comments, Vice President? We're good? Awesome. And then traditionally, we also appoint the superintendent as the secretary of the board, so I'd like to make a motion for that as well.
I move that we appoint the superintendent as secretary of the board.
Okay, then I'll second. Please vote.
Second that.
I did. Four ayes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Authorization of 9.4, which is authorization of signatures. I need a motion to authorize the new president and clerk to sign signatures to represent the district. Is there a motion?
I so move.
By Member Crocker. I shall second. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. 9.5, adoption of policies and bylaws. We do have a speaker, Ms. Cindy Parks.
Hi. Let me take you back to December 6, 2016. We all were here. You were approving your board policies and your board bylaws. At that meeting, I requested that you bring in CSBA to review your policies and bylaws due to NUSD being out of compliance and policies not being updated for many, many years. Flash forward to tonight. Not much has changed. You hired an employee to review and update the policies, yet you have only approved 16 revisions this year. I have heard that the revised policies needing your approval are sitting on various desks in departments for their review. Furthermore, Board Policy 3300 and Ed Code Section 17605 state that all transactions by the superintendent or designee on behalf of the board shall be reviewed by the board every 60 days. Yet you haven't done so since April 19, 2016, 20 months ago. Each December, you place an item on the agenda to adopt your policies and bylaws. Nevertheless, you flagrantly ignore the needs to update the policies, nor are you adhering to the financial responsibilities of ratifying staff-authorized contracts. As you adopt the board policies and board bylaws, I hope you seriously consider what I have said, and in 2018, seek to abide by the current laws. Thank you.
Okay, do you have a motion to approve item 9.5?
I move that we adopt our policies and bylaws.
By Member
I'd like to
Thomas.
second it with the thought that all policies that are adjusted in the future will be adjusted. We're taking them as they are now. For example, there's something that's on the consent, or that's on the new business, I think, a policy in which will be changed. And so this is subject, we are accepting them as they are, but they will be modified as we go down the line. With that in mind, I'm seconding it.
So there's a motion and a second. Please vote. Ms. Crocker?
Oh, I'm sorry. I seconded my couple of years.
Great, 4 ayes, thank you. 9.6, fixed time of meetings. Traditionally, we have started 7 for open session and ending at 10. Is it the desire of the board to keep the same time, or this is the time to make any changes if we so wish? If not, then I shall entertain a motion to approve the start and end time.
I move approval of the start at 7 p.m. and the end at 10 p.m.
I'll second.
If I can, okay, that's fine. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. The meeting dates as scheduled, and so listed are the meeting dates for the upcoming year. So I would need a motion to approve those dates, realizing that these may change based upon timelines and necessary meetings that we may hold or withdraw. But this is a tentative meeting schedule. To have a motion to approve?
I so move.
By Member Crocker, is there a second? I shall second. Please vote.
Hold on, sorry, I have a quick-
Oh, Member Preciado.
I was waiting for that, and then
Go ahead.
so there's a couple ones that I want to know. So August 7th, if that's the first Tuesday of the month, I know last time we were told about National Night Out to consider that. So that's National Night Out for.
Is that for that next year?
Yeah, that's for the next. At least that's my understanding. So we would be setting ourselves up to meet at that time when we said that we were going to try to take that off. And then the other one, November 6th, that's the election date. So.
We've had meetings during election dates before, if I recall.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
I do agree with the August 7th, so maybe we can roll the August 7th content into August 21st, because that's only slated for a study session at this point.
It's the beginning of school, and there may be needs for.
But depending on the
I would rather see
calendar.
it July 30th, if there's needs in terms of approval of contracts, that kind of thing. The school is starting, and to wait until the 21st is pretty late.
So July 18th would be
July
the
30th?
July 18th would. Oh, actually, hold on. I'm looking at the wrong year. I'm looking at the third Tuesday in July.
So we also have to be cognizant of staff vacation months and whatnot, and oftentimes the month of July is really the only month that admin.
So it'd be the 5th. So it's the 31st then.
31st.
31st.
So does that work? As opposed.
You mean instead of August 7th,
Yeah.
go July 31st?
Correct. Yeah.
It works for me. I think.
Most staff is back by
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to move into mid-July. Unless you guys really want to come around.
July 31st works.
Okay, so
Yeah.
July 31st, we'll change
July
it to
31st works.
And then you
Fine.
said keeping the November 6th.
I would keep it. We've had it during election nights before.
I know, in terms of just thinking about encouraging civic engagement, civic participation, and having folks getting involved in other.
Well, by this time the polls are closed, right? Aren't they voting in the morning?
No,
They close
no,
to.
close at 8.
Yeah. But that's fine. Everybody can make their decision. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then, we do have a motion and then an amendment to then change.
I
Accept it. Okay. So please vote.
July 31st is the only one.
Correct. Great, 5 ayes. Thank you. Superintendent's update, 10.1.
Thank you, President Nguyen, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. I only have a few items, 2 items actually. The first one is I am still searching for board dates to consider for a board retreat. Since we spoke last, I do have Carl Kahn willing to facilitate that for us at no cost to the district. So he's willing to work with us on some dates, but he needs a couple of dates to consider. Whatever is your pleasure, if it's during the day, on a weekday, or a Saturday. So if you guys have any ideas on what dates might be potential retreat dates, I would suggest maybe sometime in January to start looking for a date for us to pull together a cabinet board retreat.
Can we manage that through Ms. Aquino?
Yes, if you could send some dates to Ms. Aquino, we'll collect that and then share back with you.
Perfect.
The second one, I'm going to ask Associate Superintendent Salinas to just talk a little bit about LCAP Save the Date activity that's coming up. And I think we have a handout, or we didn't bring them. We'll send it to him, but I don't, is it in my notes? It might be. I don't have a yellow sheet of paper. I don't have it. Well, we will send it out, but if you can describe what
Sure.
that is?
As you know, we are getting ready to roll out the update for our LCAP and really start the process as we continue with continuous improvement around our LCAP. We are going to have a general input session on January 11th, and then we will have a second general input session that will be in the evening in the month of January also. We will post all of these dates on our website and push it out to all of our principals for the school sites. In addition, we will continue with our Parent Advisory Council that we started last year, incorporating in some of the same members to continue to do that process. I'm hoping that at our January meeting, Ms. Saavedra, who is overseeing the Special Projects Director, will bring forward all of this information at our January Board of Education meeting. But we will be sure to have all invitations out and publicize our first input session. We're working very closely with some of our partners in Alameda County with Fremont and New Haven to try to model our process so that we're all kind of in the Tri-City area doing the same process, and also working with the county office. Also, I want to add that the updated dashboard will be released to the public on Thursday. The date keeps moving. We will have that information out, and that is the update on the dashboard. And I'm hoping to be able to share more at our January meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one last item that's going to be coming forward, but I want to probably recognize them twice. Newark Education Foundation will be coming forward soon with a $10,000 donation to fund science camps. So more to come on that, but that concludes my report at this time.
Thank you. Moving on to 11.1, sunshine proposal for the reopener for the Newark Teachers Association. There is a speaker, Carrie New.
This is the public hearing, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's open.
Oh, it's open. I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. Yeah, so I must say I'm rather ignorant about this process, as you can imagine, because I've never sat on the other side of the table. So I look only at it from the outside. And what I see now is that there's a first interim with a budget for the coming years going to be discussed in a follow-up item where potentially about 24 FTEs, 24 people are let go, you know, the classified non-management and certificated non-management. And I try to understand how this works, because if you negotiate with partners, and of course our teachers and our classified people are partners, you know, they're pillars of what makes everything work, you use a certain order of things. So I would think you show leadership by getting these parties together and saying, here's the problem here, we got to work this out. And you don't do that by coming up with a document and say, well, this is what we want, and now we're going to negotiate it. And again, I do have to reserve, I'm ignorant about some of the details perhaps, but it's kind of odd to me, the order of this happening. Thank you.
Are there any more comment on the public hearing for the sunshine of the opener? Okay. That's not it. No. If not, it's 8:09, so we shall close this public hearing of the sunshine proposal for the NTA. Moving on to public comment on non-agenda items, 12.1. First speaker, Cesar Castillo.
Good evening, Superintendent Sanchez, members of the board, executive staff. My name is Cesar Castillo. I'm a sophomore at Newark Memorial. In the middle of July, I met with Superintendent Sanchez regarding double counting community college credits, specifically those taken at Ohlone Community College, to not only be placed on a high school student's transcript, but also added to their high school credits gained, so they could be used as requisites to graduate from Newark Memorial High School. I was told that after the meeting, my transcript would be looked into, and I would get further communication. That happened a bit under 5 months ago, and I have not received anything. I'd like to note that this meeting took place with Jessica Ricketts handling it. I spoke with her first, and she set up the meeting. So I don't know if there was any miscommunication there, but I would just like to bring that to the attention of the board. I also spoke with Carolyn Hamilton at the California Department of Education. She said that it was a district option, depending on whether it's up to the district if they want to permit it or not. So here I am in front of you members of the board, just asking where you guys stand on that.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we can't comment on items that are non-agendized, but what we can ask the superintendent is to maybe put that on the agenda for the next meeting, and then we can discuss it in detail.
And I can follow up with you and get you an update on where we are.
Okay. When is the next board meeting?
January 16th.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Parks.
Education Code 35145.5 states it is the intent of the legislature that the members of the public be able to place matters directly related to school district business on the agenda of the school district governing board meetings. In the spirit of being transparent and to echo a request made by Ms. Crocker several months ago, I respectfully request an agenda item which will provide an update of each expenditure made from Fund 40. This update would inform the community of all projects, materials, and equipment purchased with the proceeds from the sale of the Russian site. At the August 1st meeting, I mentioned a warrant charging Fund 25 developers fees for moving supplies for the Whiteford preschool to move to Music Elementary. In the follow-up email from Mr. Richards, he acknowledged after conferring with legal counsel that it was best to journal the charge to another fund. That fund was Fund 40, the Russian account. I do not recall the board authorizing Fund 40 to be used for expenses to deferred maintenance or moving expenses. If this expense is part of the music's wish list, it would be above their allotted, or I'm sorry, so that it shouldn't be paid out of Fund 40. I also wanted to bring to your attention that, or I don't know if you were aware that there was an issue at the wrestling room at the high school. This leak is just like the one at the junior high earlier this year that has damaged the mats in the room. The mats were wet twice. One time they were completely submerged in water. The mats were cleaned, and yet when they were rolled up for storage and unrolled, they were moldy. This is inexcusable. The health and safety of the Newark students should be a priority. I certainly hope that you would consider the students first and replace the mats immediately, then seek damages from either Vanner, the roofing company, the HVAC, or whoever is responsible for the mats. And here is my letter requesting that the Fund 40 expenditures be placed on the agenda and transparency for the community where the money is gone. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Carrie Knoop.
Okay. I think one of the items that the Board of Education does every year is to do a self-review, right? And I'm curious if the results of that self-evaluation, if the board is willing to share that to the public. From my perspective, I see a lot of things that it feels that the board is either doesn't want to take power or doesn't feel to be empowered. But my perception is that the board is not in control. And let me explain that. The word managing and micromanaging comes up a lot of times, and of course the board should not manage. Managing is not the role of the board. But what is the role of the board is to monitor things, to monitor the financials, and to monitor the academic performance. And that means asking questions. The other thing I see is that there's so little discussion, debate among the board members. I'm sure board members have opinions, and it is important to have these debates in public. That's the whole meaning behind the Brown Act, to create a public forum where the public can see where the elected officials stand for. Now, that has to be, of course, with proper respect. And obviously, you know, opinions need to be respected, but it can happen. But debate is so necessary, and I miss that. I also miss a lot of actions that public speakers bring up, or things that are brought up and that were supposedly going to be followed up, and it never happens. Again, I am uncomfortable with the feeling of who is in power. The board should be empowered. You are empowered by the state of California to take control. And, you know, we're in a very difficult situation where the district has had a series of deficit spending, and as you can see, the county says, hey, you fix it or we'll fix it. The county takes action. But the board should do that too. And in a friendly way. It is nothing personal. You know, I think our superintendent does a great job, and he has a great responsibility, and the staff does a great job. It's not a blame game, but the board needs to be empowered, and you have to feel empowered to do it, and that's lacking right now, in my opinion.
Thank you. Sarah?
So, sorry, I've been sick, but if you know, the roofing was going on at the high school, and we're very thankful for that. Unfortunately, the roofing above our mat room was not entirely fixed. Actually, one time when we went into the mat room, it was completely flooded, and all of our mats were ruined, and all of our stuff was ruined, and it really, it sucked. So we had to clean it up. We had to roll up our mats, and then they fixed it, and then we went back in, and then it got flooded again. And now our mats have been folded over, and they're really expensive mats, and now they have creases through them that are completely, like, we can't fix them. And the mats, we've been forced to relocate to the upstairs event center, and so we are having practices during basketball games, and the whistles are like stopping them at the court, but then we can't learn anything because the music's blasting and the whistles are blasting. And the mats we're actually using are really, really old and not meant to be practiced on for long periods of time, so they're wearing down super thin, where we are pretty much practicing on hard floor, where our students are getting injured, including myself. And, like, I'm not trying to say that this is, like, a blame game. It's not. It's just we really want something to be done for our mats and for our room, because right now we're looking at either relocating to, like, setting up our mats and tearing them out every single day in the Cougar Commons cafeteria, which are the tape to tape down our mats. I don't know if you know, it's $14 per roll, and we use about 4 rolls of tape per practice, which is $40 every single day that we have to tape down our mats, which is, it adds up a lot, which is for money we could use for tournaments. And then the other place would be the junior high, which would also be hard because we have about 60 kids on our team. So it's just, we need to find a practice place, and we need something to be done with our mats, or like if we could fix them, or I'm not sure. It's kind of, they've already folded over, and it's really hard to fix it, and we just need help. Like, our students, like our team, my teammates, like, we are a state qualifying team. We want to get our practice in. We want a place where we can truly go back and get our NCS title again and bring back a state title soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Can we look into that, please?
I can assure you that I'm personally involved in that and pushing as hard as I can to get that resolved quickly.
Zoila Avila, excuse me.
Okay, good evening. My name is Soyla Avila. I'm from Graham School. I'm here just from behalf of the Spanish parents community. From Mr. Sanchez told me a couple meetings back that he was going to help us to bring us together and the problems with having translator in here and other couple things. So he did. He gave us time. He came with a lot of solutions. Gave us a lot of, how can I say it? You know, he heard us in the meetings and gave us more help to the parents to get involved in the schools. So we're here. I'm here to say thank you very much for your time and for your help. Thank you.
Thank you. On to 13.1, old business, wish list, Lincoln Elementary. We have a speaker, Ms. Cindy Parks.
Yes, it's me again. So there's a problem with 13.1 through 13.5. They all say that the funding is Measure G, and this money is supposed to be Fund 40. It's supposed to be the Russian money. So that's what's wrong with 13.1 through 13.5. I do have cards in for other ones, but just wanted to specify that for the first one before you start on all of them.
Mr. Richards?
Shar, would you explain the typo?
I made a mistake in the funding source of each of those. They are the Russian funds. And it's the money that the board approved at 110 per student in January.
And it is in Fund 40's budget.
So the fencing and all these materials, this is installation, everything out the door cost. This is not purchase acquisition materials only, correct? Is there a motion to approve 13.1?
Can I make a statement before we do that?
Yes, please.
All of the wish list items was money that we gave to the site to make a decision. And so the decision on what they're doing is a decision that was come to by the staff. And so what we're doing is we're making sure it's not over the amount they should have. In terms of the items itself, they have the power. We gave them the power to make that decision. So I would like it be moved for 13.1 wish list for Lincoln.
Okay, I shall second.
Okay.
Please vote. Five ayes. Thank you. On down the line, 13.2. Is there a motion to approve?
I move approval.
Okay. By Member Thomas.
Second.
Second by Member Preciado. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. 13.3 for Graham Elementary. Motion to approve?
I move approval.
By Member Thomas. I shall second. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. So, Ms. Parks, you're not going to speak on 4. You are on 13.4 and 13.5? Okay, Ms. Parks, 13.4.
First of all, I'd like to say that I think that you needed to make your motions with the correction, with an amendment correcting the item on the agenda with your funding source. Be that as it may. 13.4 is the marquee at Birch Grove. And first of all, this is not the item that was on their wish list. And my understanding is, I wish Mr. Wasser was still here. It wasn't even something that he had put on the list. So I'm not even sure how this got where it is. They already have a marquee that you have already paid for a year ago. They have one that says Birch Grove Primary. You paid for that a year ago, almost $3,000. It was, for that price, I'm assuming that you took what was there and it was updated. Fund 40 has already paid for updating to the sign. Now you're going to spend another $34,000 on an electronic one. So that seems awful wasteful. And anyhow, I would ask you to table this until you actually have a conversation with Mr. Wasser and
clarify
confirm that this is something that he wants to have done. Again, this was not on the original list from them.
Superintendent?
Sure, can you help clarify that process?
I personally spoke with Mr. Wasser for that decision. He said he'd like an electronic one like the other schools. And he met with the vendor and showed him so I could get the proper bids. So I do wish he was here because he did that was his decision.
Member Crocker?
Do you remember what the cost was to adjust the old sign? Because the sign itself was not replaced, it was just the glass in front. So it was a very minimal amount of money. $3,000. Thank you. I accept that. So that would be...
Is there a motion to approve?
At this point, no, I'm not going to make the motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. 13-5, Ms. Parks.
The music marquee says that it's going to be $30,408, and they have a remaining balance of $1162. On their wish list, the priority number 1 was benches. Priority number 2 was the marquee. If you go to your warrants tonight, there is a warrant in there for them to have new benches or rotten benches replaced, $3,300. So I'm not sure, and that's out of your Fund 40 also. So I pulled the warrants for when we get there, but just so that you make you aware that you're paying $30,408 for this, and that they also have in the warrants $3,300 worth of warrants for benches that were also paid out of this. So that puts them over their amount. So I just wanted you to be fully informed.
Thank you.
I don't believe that's the case. Go ahead.
I spoke with Principal Amanda. When she spoke with me, we didn't talk about benches. She at first would have liked a fence through the front of the school, which there was no way we could afford to do the fence. She said her next item, she would love to have a marquee as well.
Okay.
So that was what was...
This is what the site wants.
Yep.
So this is representative of what the site wants.
This is
Okay.
the principal.
That's fair. So with that, I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Second member Prasiado, you have a...
So, yeah, just asking in terms of making sure that it's fair for everyone, that if we are moving forward with this, then if there's benches on the list, that either that not be part of the same process of...
Right, if the benches appear elsewhere, I would assume that's using site funds or some other local funds.
Yeah, I would like to get some clarification from Mr. Richards about why that was paid for out of Fund 40 before this one even came to us.
Do we know? Right. I'm going to have to look it up. Okay, we can research it.
Sorry, I'm working on the budget change you just gave me.
Yeah, it just seems to me that we need to be very careful that whatever gets expended or charged into Fund 40 has been approved for Fund 40, and it sounds like the site didn't even know that the benches were being paid for out of Fund 40. Is that true?
We never discussed benches. When it came to wish list, it was a fence or the marquee. That was the 2 items that I had.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think they need the marquee, and I'll vote yes on this, but I really think it speaks to the need for when we do have Fund 40 items coming before us, that we have a comprehensive spreadsheet that represents the budget for these site-based beautification projects, or whatever we're calling them, priorities, and so that we know ahead of time that staff has researched that they do have all the money available that they need.
So I don't know if there's a way in terms of incorporate as part of approval of this, is that if in fact there is, because I'm thinking in terms of equity, right? We always talk, or whatever term we want to use, that if everyone's getting the same per pupil, that we're not. I just want to make sure that then, because then is it fair that Snow Lincoln grant, like everybody else doesn't get that extra 2,000.
Right, so that's a matter of process, and then what we need to do now is, if we're inclined to approve the contract, because if you're asking to put the bench into this, it's not part of this particular contract, so they need approval for this contract so that they can proceed with work. We can probably reconcile that $3,300 bench at another time, right? But I hope we're not going to let $3,300 bench derail this contract for this school. Okay, so there was a motion by myself and second by Ms. Thomas, is that correct? Or second by Ms. Crocker? Crocker. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. 14.1, donations report. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
By Member Preciado. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Thomas. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. A donation of $280 to Newark Junior High School from the Beneventi Community Impact Fund for the principal's donation. A donation of $50 to Newark Memorial High School from James and Kimberly Perry for Ms. Torkelson's science class. A donation of $50 to Newark Junior High School by Brenda and John Casey for athletics. A donation of $30 to Newark Junior High School by Daljit and Irene Kumar for athletics. $25 to Newark Junior High School by Lisalia and Epinesa Pacola for athletics. A donation, drone video, donation of services, drone video of all NUSD sites from Steve Shambao for the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Donation of $350 to Birch Grove Intermediate by Jean Powell Ficklin for the honorarium of artist or storyteller. A donation of $1,500 to Birch Grove, $1,500 to Graham Elementary, $1,500 to Kennedy, $1,500 to Lincoln, $1,500 to Music Elementary, and $1,500 to Snow Elementary from the Newark Educational Foundation for 6th grade science camp. A donation of $110 to Birch Grove Intermediate from various donors, cash donations for the Birthday Wishes Marquee. A donation of $20 to Birch Grove Intermediate from Hatinder Singh and Lalita Kumari for Birthday Wishes Marquee. A donation of $5 to Birch Grove Intermediate by Gyanan and Rimar Gundar for Birthday Wishes Marquee. And a donation of $500 to Graham Elementary from the Philanthropic Ventures Foundation for Ms. Ramona Sosa's special ed class. Thank you very much to our donors. On to item 14.2, update Board Policy 9250. Is there a move to approve?
I move approval.
By Member Thomas, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Preciado. Please vote.
This is going to be enacted as of January 1st, is that correct?
I believe so.
No, I think it's as of after we pass it.
Right, correct. Then I'll accept.
Okay. Four ayes. Thank you. Previously, earlier in the meeting, we had the I forgot the public hearing. Excuse me. So 14.3, we're going to accept this proposal to accept the initial proposal for reopeners for the Newark Unified School District. Is there a move to approve?
I so move.
By
I'll second that.
By Member Crocker, seconded by Member Thomas. Please vote. Thank you. 14.4, the main event, the first interim report. Would you have a speaker or two? Mr. Noop.
Thank you, Mr. Richards, for providing that report. The problem I have is I had 2 hours to read it, so if a member of the public only has 2 hours to read it, what would it be for board members to digest this in a whopping 2 hours? And it's an important one. Despite what some board members think, I think no decision that the board made is sort of like wishy-washy because we have more time in the future to change it. It doesn't work like that. You make a decision and you stand by it. And right now we have a first interim report with a forecast of 24 FTEs that are going to have to be let go. And that's very serious. So with respect to the report, I only have one question. It seems that at least how I read it, that the expenditures are basically in line, except for the contracts. They go a little bit higher than expected. And I don't know if there's any reason for that. And I guess the good news is that the revenue, as always, is much higher in the first interim than we have forecasted. And I appreciate Mr. Richards' conservative approach to forecasting, but sometimes I think it would be helpful to at least get an anticipation of some items that are that will be added to the revenue, so we can make better forecasts. It sometimes looks a little bit too dire. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Cindy Parks.
I also wanted to echo Mr. Noob's concern about the fact that the first interim wasn't available until about 3 o'clock this afternoon. I've had time to flip through things, but very little time to actually assimilate what's there, and I think it's very disappointing that this wasn't made available in enough time, because I know a lot of you were on the road traveling to get here, and you have probably not even done anything more than fan through it yourselves. And I think it's a disservice to the community that we weren't available. It wasn't available for us to read through. Thank you.
Thank you. 14, Mr. Richards, 14.4.
Okay, well, if that wasn't enough, the ones that you have now are basically trash after the board's actions during our session prior to this session. So we have some significant changes. I'm going to present the presentation, and I will just walk you through where things have changed as a result of the board's actions and kind of give you where we're at. But it is going to be different than what we saw before. So let me head over there and we'll...
So to clarify, I don't think we took any formal action, right? At the
no,
board
but you
session.
gave me direction to change
okay.
things on what I'm turning into the county, and I have made those changes. So now we are going to.
Well, I want to be clear so that we had a discussion in terms of just our framework. We haven't voted on it, and there is no decision. So what you're going to present is what we have now, and then you can give us, based off of your understanding of the conversation of where we're at. But there has been no decision until after we make a decision.
I understand.
Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Richards.
So here we are for first interim. And as with first interim, as with anything, as I mentioned during the study session, we had to build a set of assumptions in to identify what we would do for first interim. So the information that is on this presentation is based on what was the original scenario B. So scenario B prior to the board's recommendations of shifting things that occurred during today's study session. And with that, the unrestricted revenue, net of what has to be contributed over into the restricted side to cover programs that require contributions from the general fund, was $48,305,539. 88% of that, or $42.7 million, is from the local control funding formula. A little bit of state revenue of about $1.9 million. Of that, about $820,000 is new since the budget adoption, which was the mandated cost, one-time money. Well, the state calls it mandated cost. It's really a one-time to everybody, whether they had mandated costs or not, but if you do, the state's striking it against it. As well as some local money of about $450,000 and the $3.3 million interfund transfer from Fund 17. On the expenditure side, as Mr. Sanchez pointed out during the study session, 89% of the unrestricted general fund is salaries and benefits. The remaining 11%, or about $700,000, is 2% is books and supplies, $3.8 million services and other operating expenses, and about $362,000 of net other outgo are the primary pieces to that. The $42,000 interfund transfer out that remains is the last year of the 3-year process for the Child Development Fund. The $100,000 to adult ed is now gone from this projection. So in the end, that puts us at a net increase in fund balance of $1.12 million. And that number's been mitigated a little bit, and with the action, or with the direction of modification that occurred during the session, prior to this session, that number is now $1,079,078. So it's just a $40,000 roughly difference in the current year. And so our projected ending balance is at just over $4 million. The components of the ending balance are just revolving cash, stores, and our 3% reserve, and then the remaining falls to what's called undesignated fund balance. On the categorical side, in the restricted general fund, roughly half of the money is money that comes from the local control funding formula in the form of the contributions to special education, the routine restricted maintenance fund. And the rest of it is federal and state income, as well as some local income that are on the restricted side. Of that $3.7 million from the state, a piece of that is that oddball contribution, about $2 million that they do with regard to the STRS, that we have to pick up their share of STRS and then pick up that share of expense on our books. That's a straight pass-through from the state. And so on the categorical side, about 3/4 of the budget, just shy of that, about 71%, is salaries and benefits. A bigger piece of it is services and operating for things that we do not have staffing for. And Mr. Newt pointed out that there was a shift with some staffing reduction in staffing costs versus an increase in services and other operating expenses, and that largely has to do with certain specialties within special education where we have not been able to fill all of our positions, and so we have had to contract out for services with specialized agencies because we don't have enough staffing to fill all of the positions. And so we've had to shift budget between the staffing accounts and the services accounts to pay for those services. And in the restricted general fund, as is usual, if they begin the year with a beginning fund balance, it's projected they'll expend it in the current year because most categories that allow a fund balance carryover are usually 2 or sometimes 3-year grants. And so they're expending out a chunk of what was their opening balance, and that's a normal part of the budgeting process for our categorical program. The rest of the funds of the district are actually in good shape. Adult Ed was able to make the reductions necessary to absorb the elimination of the $100,000 contribution that we talked about right at budget adoption. Child development is on par to not have to fully utilize the 2,000, but we haven't adjusted the budget yet. We're waiting to see where the rest of their revenue comes in over the course of the year. Child nutrition is in good shape. They're breaking even as we want them to and not accumulating too big of a reserve, about $18 million. We do have the $3.3 million transfer from Fund 17 showing in Fund 17's budget, which leaves it an ending balance of $1,887,000. That number was $4.3 million at budget adoption, so it's down by $1 million because we were able to reduce the projected contribution because of the revenues we're seeing in the general fund. The capital funds, again, are from primarily spending money this year. Capital facilities, or developer fees, as they're also known, is coming in actually a little bit ahead of projection right now. So that number may get a bump up by the time we get to second interim. They haven't fully, we haven't fully received the $1 million that's budgeted, but we are ahead of track for 4 months into the bond interest and redemption fund is controlled by the county for the payoff of the bonds. We don't actually control anything that goes on in that fund. It's the special taxes that then turn around and make the bond payments. Our self-insurance funds, both for post-retirement and for property and liability, are in fine shape. They're being assessed the right amount. There is a purposeful decrease of fund balance because there's some older claims still being processed out and finalized out in the property and liability account. And now for the good news in the report, although it's almost indiscernible, all the way on the right-hand side. You'll notice that for the first time in a very long time, the red is bigger than the blue. That means our actual enrollment came in ahead of the projected number from budget adoption. So we have a little bit to celebrate because our real number actually did go up this year. And so even though it's not a huge increase, we'll take any additional students we can get. And actually there's an error on here of one student. Last year was 5845. We gained 40 this year. And so we're projecting ADA also to rise just slightly. Percentage-wise, we're projecting same as last year. It was not one of our better years, but all in all, we expect that it'll be something that will be typical. So as we've had a gain in students, we project a gain in ADA. So with that, we had some gain in our funding. Now this multi-year projection, I'm going to give you the modifications as well as the original numbers. As I mentioned, a $2 million undesignated fund balance. And the reductions that were proposed in scenario B completely eliminated the projected deficit for the next 2 years. And so we actually projected an undesignated fund balance at June of 20 of $2.423 million. With the proposals that were discussed during our last session, those numbers have changed somewhat. So we're projecting undesignated at the end of the current year at $1,960,938. For next year, $1,692,716, and the third year out, $1,545,092. And with those projections, that's still taking no money out of Fund 17 for the next 2 years. So we're able to absorb it. It's still a decline. That's why we still see some. We will have some negative numbers in the revision to this slide that will come out. But we're still above the required 3% reserve, and we do not have to continue drawing on Fund 17 in the next 2 years, even with the changes that were just discussed during the study session. Which means, if the board agrees to the discussions that we've had with what we have right now, we would have a positive certification and we would go back to positive, and the county will be very, very happy that we've actually taken the actions that we said we would take so that we could get back to a positive certification to be able to meet our obligations over the next 2 years. And then the county will review it, they'll comment, they'll either tell us they agree, they'll find a flaw somewhere and tell us they disagree, or in the meantime, the governor's budget will be out in a month, and we'll be back on January 16th to talk about what that is going to mean for Newark Unified School District, and we'll look forward then to beginning our own budget development process for the next school year, along with our development of the LCAP. That calendar begins here shortly, and we'll keep moving forward. So as we get better information, we adjust our projected enrollment, and we've already done that in the enrollment projections that are part of the multi-year projection. So we'll use that information going forward, and hopefully we'll have even better news when the governor's budget comes out with regard to what's going to happen in the future. The rest of the supplementals in the district, cash, we're able to show that we're going to end with positive cash, so the county will be very happy to hear that. Maintenance of effort, not really an issue at interim, but it is a form that now prints out. It's changed names. It's not No Child Left Behind anymore. Now it's the Every Student Succeeds Act. The calculations are the same, and we still meet our MOE. It just has a new name. And then the summary of interfund transfers is included in the criteria and standards. And the changes that we made affect the following forms, which will change if the board adopts what we were discussing during the previous session. It will change Fund 1, the criteria and standards, the cash flow statement, and the multi-year projection. And then we have to do a reprint on the certification. So we'll issue new books if that's the action that the board takes after this item. And I want to thank Kim, Carol, Sarah, and the rest of the staff of the business office, as I've had to kind of bury myself in my office to push this out over the past week, so they've been fielding a lot for me. And so I appreciate that, and I want to turn it over to the board and ask you if you have any questions.
Member Prasado?
Yes, I have a question. In terms of Fund 12, Child Development, if you can help me understand, it says that there's an ending fund balance of approximately $57,000, but we're doing an inter-fund transfer of about $42,000. Can't we, or should we have a zero inter-fund transfer and then let it pay for
The
itself?
short answer is no, we can't, because that's actually not child development's money, it's actually food services' money. There is a portion of within the child development program, within Fund 12, the food services program that provides all of their after-school foods operates within that fund and operates under the auspices of our child nutrition program. And that is the fund that actually has a fund balance projected at the end of the year, not the actual child development fund itself. So that's why it's under restricted, because it's a federal categorical, and at this time it's running ahead. And that may change over the course between now, but that's what the current projection is that it will end with a fund balance. It actually ended with a fund balance last year as well. So what that will mean is, because it's designed to be a break-even program, is child nutrition will alter perhaps what they're doing in the snacks and then work that down, because they can only have so much carryover, but it's not part of the regular operational program of the after-school program.
All right, so then as a follow-up then would be, at least from my perspective, would be that we have zero inter-fund transfers next year at the very minimum.
That's already built into the multi-year projection, that we would eliminate it because this was the third and last year of the 3-year transition program for child development. And it may be that they won't need one this year. They did not need the full amount last year either. So it may be that they won't, but I won't know that until we get closer to the end of the year.
Okay, and the Fund 17 special reserve of 1.8 million, that is assuming these current numbers, or assuming based off of our discussion?
Our discussion does not change that number.
Okay.
Because we did not alter the multi-year projection enough to require a transfer out of Fund 17 in the out years, other than just the cash borrowing between November that gets repaid in December.
Thank you.
So there won't be a net push from Fund 17 to Fund 1 under the current projection, or under the projection after the alterations made by the board's discussion earlier tonight.
Member Thomas?
Yeah, how do we reconcile the discussion we had earlier this evening and the report you just gave and the numbers that are in this document we got?
So the modifications that were made by the board, one of them was a current year.
The proposed, or the discussion, I want to make sure we're clear that we're not saying that we've made those modifications, because then it implies that we took action and, yeah.
All right, my calculation of the modifications based on the discussion that was had, so that you can know what the difference is on the bottom line, is such that rather than having a gain of 102,000 in 1819 and 331,959 in 1920, it is actually a decrease of 307,164 in 1819 and a decrease of 83,955 in 1920. So in the bottom line, because we were projecting roughly 2.4 million above the 3% reserve, that number is now 1.5 million. So approximately $900,000 switch, about $450,000 a year for
the years. It's actually about 420 for each of the 2 out years, and then a chunk for the current school year for the one position that was a current year position.
Again, we're talking about what?
The difference between the multi-year projection that's in the book that you have versus what the one will be if we make the modifications that were discussed during the study session tonight. The bottom line changes from that $2,423,792 undesignated fund balance at June of 20 that you see on this slide. That number becomes $1,545,592. So it's a difference of just under 900,000, about 880,000.
So, Mr. Richards, the document which accompanied the presentation, the 136-page book or document, does that contain the elements of what we've discussed, scenarios?
It contains all of the original scenario B prior to the discussion that the board had during the session.
Can you direct us?
If the board takes that action, then the existing book stays the same. If the board takes the modified action, then it changes to these.
Can you direct us to where that's located on this 136-page document?
Sure. If you go to Form MYPI.
What page is that?
Actually, hand me a book.
Because we're essentially going to vote or not to adopt this first interim, this document here, and so we need to be clear on what exactly that we're approving.
So if you turn to page 107 of your document, which is the combined unrestricted and restricted general fund multi-year projection. Or you can go to either that one or to the unrestricted, because at the bottom line it's going to be the same. The unassigned or unappropriated number and the reserve for economic uncertainties are the second to the last and third to the last lines on this report, on page 107 and on page 103. The reserve is $1,956,226. That's the required 3% reserve. The unassigned or unappropriated above that amount is $2,423,792.
So again, this looks to be a singular document. Which scenario did it take into effect for this particular document?
This document, scenario B.
Scenario B.
Yeah,
okay.
The original scenario B.
All right.
So if we were to accept the modifications that was presented by superintendent, how does that change it?
If we take the modifications that were discussed with the superintendent, the changes to this slide, I'll just go line by line through this slide. The undesignated fund balance at the end of June 30 of 18, current school year, would be $1,960,938.
So hold on, let me I'm sorry. Yeah. Since the original scenario B saved us more money than the modified B, right? Would it be just much simpler to then approve and adopt this interim report and then make the necessary changes as things are pulled back based on the modifications?
It's really the will of the board. While the board was in closed session, I was madly going through the state software, making all the modifications from that discussion so that you would have the flexibility to go either way. So we'll be able to produce the replacement pages of the document. I was actually printing them when this item came up on the agenda, so I just ran out of time.
So then the path for this would be if we decide to go with option A, B, or B, B.2. If we go with B.2, then we would have to make a motion to approve an amended version of this first interim that included the changes that were reflected in B.2.
That is correct.
I would like to make that motion.
I will second that.
Okay. There's a motion by Member Thomas, seconded by Member Crocker. Member Preciado.
So I want to make sure I understand your motion. You make the motion to move forward with accepting the interim report with modified B? Is that?
Yeah, modified B per the superintendent's recommendation.
I could help. May I help the resolution? My understanding was, well, my recommendation is scenario B modified with a few changes. Specifically, the changes would be to not cut the bus driver, to not cut 2 counselors, to not cut the reduction of a principal to AP, and to reduce the athletic director to a 0.6, with the understanding that going forward, we would continue to have this the first priority of what we bring back to maintain the lower class size in K3.
Correct.
From my recollection, that's the conversation from that conversation we had earlier. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so there is a motion, a second, and we did have commentary, Member Preciado.
Yeah, so then I would want to add on that motion specifically for me to move forward would be that piece about if anything changes with the superintendent mentioned that K3 class sizes is the priority. And then I would add, or from my perspective, I would want to add that we would have the next, I don't know if we can put this here, the next interim report provided with the agenda packet so that everybody has a chance to dive into that. And then the last piece would be getting an updated budget versus actuals on high-level items, because in the past we approve this and then we have the next interim report or the next year and it's like, what happened? Well, we went over. So for us to be able to, I really want to incorporate that in this language.
Can I say something? I completely agree with putting the K3 class size in it. I think adding those other things would maybe be better as a separate agenda item next time. I too feel that we need to have these documents 3 days ahead so we can review them, and also that that we follow FICMAC's recommendation where the staff gives us monthly any major changes in the budget as we go forward. Doesn't have to be a complete redo of the budget, but any major changes impacting what we're spending or receiving.
So I get it. I mean, I would put it in a different agenda item, but this is the only agenda item that we have, and then I don't want to wait, because in my experience, if we don't put it in the context of the motion, then...
This is the first interim report, and we're accepting the report.
Right. You can probably make that request at the end. Is that a more appropriate spot?
As an amendment?
No, because what are we amending? I mean, because help me understand the Member President.
So the thing is, I mean, this is why we, in terms of figuring this out, is that we tied 2 different things together. The first interim report with the modified B. My whole point is that figuring out, we already agreed to the K3, but the other piece about getting reports on where we are, budget versus actuals.
So let me pause. But we haven't agreed to the K3. We've given staff guidance that if something comes back, we would look at that as a first priority.
Right.
That K3 acceptance doesn't come until formal board action takes place afterwards. That's yet to come. We're not making a decision now to bring back K3 if there's money, because that's a totally unknown entity.
I thought that we were saying that that's the priority to come back.
Right, but that's direction, but that's not. We're not adopting that as a policy. We can't do that right now.
No. So
we can't. I mean, if your motion is to amend this and make a motion to approve K3 to come back first, I don't know if we're in a space to make that particular motion. I think that calls for a totally separate discussion, because because the time will come where it's, the board will have a discussion on K3 or high school counselors or high school deans or the gamut of other items, right? And we haven't fully dove into that discussion yet.
And that's part of the problem, right? That we haven't figured that.
Right. But I think there's a time and place for that later on if the money materializes. Because what happens if we only come back with another $400,000 and bring back K3 class size costs $900,000? At that point, what do we do? Do we just do K3 for just K1 and 2? Do we go K3 for all the Title I schools? Or do we use that $400 no, that's not enough for K3?
That makes sense. I guess for me, it's figuring that I just want to, because if I'm okay with moving forward and with understanding that that's a priority, I just will then say that moving forward, I will not support any kind of changes like formally if we change our mind, which as a board, it feels like it happens quite often where we're like, this is the priority, this is the new priority, we need to figure out like, and for me that it's that much of a priority that I'm deciding whether or not I can support this, and that's why I want to think through this like piece. If that makes sense, but I get your point. So yeah, I mean the motion. Let's say I'm just
because right now
maybe what we need to do is make a statement that if there are more monies that are available, then there will be a full discussion by the board about priorities for
when that was expressed by Superintendent Sanchez in his original amendment. He said the priority is going to be K3. What I'm saying is we can't make a formal adoption of K3 right now.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So we are on.
He's already made that statement.
Okay, but I didn't know if because Member Thomas is the one who moved, so it has to.
It was part of.
It was part of the original statement.
Part of what he said.
Okay.
Are we debating enough, Mr. Dupe? All right, so we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
All right.
We're good as it was originally.
So the one question I did have with this is with item with B.2 that there was a column that dealt with negotiated items, whether they're furlough days or class size or whatnot. What's the status on that? When is that happening? When can we know? When can we expect to know? What's the timeline with that?
I have had an opportunity to talk to the NTA president regarding that, and we're still working through that. But at this time, the projected time frame is not to begin before March of 2018.
Ooh, that's late.
Oh, that creates problems with.
So we have to approve
March 15th.
From what
notices.
you said earlier, we have to approve layoff notices in the February meeting.
That would be correct.
Okay. And so we'll be approving pink slips before negotiations.
That is correct.
All right. Okay. So my follow-up question is if we approve pink slips prior to negotiations and negotiations occur and conclude, what's the timeline for then? Are there like callback procedures or rescinding of pink slips? And what's the timeline for that?
So once we have concluded negotiations, if we begin in March, I would assume that it would take us through to May, sometime in May, presumably with spring break in between. That will be the time that we'll be able to communicate with people who have been noticed about their positions for the 18-19 school year. They would have to wait till then to find out what their job situation would look like. And presumably those people would have to start looking for jobs elsewhere. So there are ramifications beyond just the notices and the March 15 notice and the anxiety that this will cause in the meantime. I have expressed my concerns to the union about this. I did ask if we could start in January. NTA at this time has indicated to me they would like to start in March of 2018.
Can you share where we are with the other bargaining units?
At this time, CSEA is cooperative in terms of timeframes to discuss matters including furloughs, and NUMA, of course, is on board.
Okay, so the second interim comes mid-March, right, Mr. Richards?
March 6th.
March 6th. So we're going to have colliding timelines all within that first week of March, perhaps.
That is correct, President Nguyen.
Okay. All right.
It usually happens with second interim and certificated notifications. They're usually the same board meeting.
So hopefully we can negotiate and wrap up and agree within 2 days, once we begin in March.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions, so there is a motion on the floor, and the superintendent clarified the amended motion with priority, if money materializes, to prioritize the K-3 class size. But then we will take action on that at a later time. There's a second with that, so I will open it for voting. Four ayes. Thank you. Moving on to consent agenda items. We do have one speaker on 17.2, Ms. Cindy Parks. Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped. Sorry, Ms. Parks. I jumped 2 categories. My apologies. 15.1 in employee organizations. NTA, NUMA, CSEA.
Good evening. Over the past month, Assistant Superintendent Letty Salinas came to Newark Memorial High School to discuss policies to make Newark Memorial High School a more inclusive place for transgender and gender nonconforming students. Superintendent Sanchez also followed up that productive meeting by meeting with our students to discuss issues important issues that they face. I applaud their willingness to reach out for the sake of our students, and I look forward to our collaboration so that each student in Newark feels safe when they come there to learn. I want to thank you guys. That's really awesome. I was also told recently that if NTA did not comply with the district's start date and timeline for negotiations, the district would take, quote, unilateral, end quote, action. This threatening tone is not in the spirit of good faith. The entirety of negotiation, from start time to meeting dates to agreement, are collaborative negotiations, not anyone's unilateral actions. I hope the district understands that NTA is more than willing to meet and negotiate as we have every time the contract opens. But when the district sets a deadline for when they want negotiations to end or else, it sets a sour tone, and it honestly hurts the culture of our district and the relationship between the board and Newark's teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. CSA, NUMA. Okay, moving on to 16.1. Personnel report. So,
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Member Preciados. Is there a second? I shall second. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. Now on to consent agenda items. So Ms. Parks, 17.2.
Good evening. This portion is regarding the warrant. The item that I spoke about earlier, the rotted benches at music, the $3,300 charge out of Fund 40 is on page 19 for Mr. Richards' information. So I would like to get more information about that. Then on page 23 of the warrants, there's a warrant paid for $1,500 to Blue Star Company. They were on your donation list last month on November 7th for 45 tables. It said that they donated 45 tables to the McGregor site, yet you're being charged $1,500 for delivery. I don't know if that was, I don't know, just wanted to make sure that you made the connection there. The one thing that did concern me is that this is billed to the high school. That's their coding that's on here. Yet, again, the donation list said that it was going to McGregor, so I wanted to point that out to you. One of the questions that I did have is regarding the breaker at music that was taken out of the bond. There's a $1,471 fee for a breaker at music, and I don't know what that was for. And then that's it. So the $3,300 for the bench, the $1,500 delivery fee for the tables charged to the high school versus McGregor, which according to the donation sheet, they were going to the McGregor site, not to the high school. And then this breaker for music charged to the bond.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rich. Can we be sure to reconcile those
I don't
if there are
understand.
errors or
I'm-
accounts?
You know about the tables.
Okay.
The tables were donations.
They're not, I don't see it listed on 13.
The tables were offered as a donation. The company's only agreement was that the payment for delivery, and it was $500 per, I believe, 15 tables. And Newark Memorial High, it was offered to all sites. Newark Memorial High School, Grace asked for 45 tables. She paid for the 3 trucks to deliver them, and they're actually in the Star Lab at the high school.
Great, thank you.
So that was that donation.
So apparently the donation sheet said McGregor, so that was just.
With regard to the breaker, that actually is an older bill, but the breaker had to be, was an issue having to do with the HVAC unit, was causing an older breaker that couldn't handle the load, so the breaker had to be replaced to support the new units.
Okay. And then the bench, if that indeed was taken out of account 40, was that an error, or we're going to reconcile that afterwards, or later?
As far as I know, it is not an error. I need to go back and verify with Vince, but I know that that was a project that was agreed to move forward as a part of a discussion that was had between Vince and Amanda on dealing with an issue at that campus. I will have to get the details and bring it to the board at a future meeting. I just don't recall right now what those details are.
Thank you.
I guess my question is, I don't understand how something can just arbitrarily be charged to Fund 40. The board has authorized certain expenditures for that, and only certain expenditures.
So we're going to have a board.
It was part of the landscaping, and we accelerated that particular school to deal with an urgent issue along the timeline of when we were relocating Whiteford. But beyond that, to get the rest of the details, I don't want to sit here and speculate.
Right.
I'd rather just meet with them.
That's going to be at another meeting anyways with the request from Ms. Parks earlier to discuss on Fund 40 anyhow.
Yes.
So we'll discuss it at that time. So with that, I need approval for 17.2 to 17.6 consent agenda item, excuse me.
I'll move approval.
I thought we were going through each of them like we usually do.
No, not for consent. It's the block.
Okay, I missed that. Then I had questions. So I don't know if I'd pull them or.
Yeah, then
okay.
You would.
Yeah, you can pull whatever you want.
Which one would you like to discuss now, so we can approve them as a block or
sure.
withdraw?
So 17.3, I just want to ask because again, we're in this mode of budget cuts, but then it says that there's a fiscal impact of $81,000. I know we have to, so I think I've mentioned this before in terms of, are we taking it from somewhere? That one. Okay, it's restricted funding. So does that mean there's restricted revenue?
Yes, for 17.3, in September, the board approved an additional speech therapist. We have not been able to find a permanent employee for that. So it will use those funds to pay for this augmented contract.
Okay. Any others? No. So there was a motion by Member Thomas to approve the block 17.2 through 17.6. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Preciado. Please vote. Four ayes. Thank you. On to 18.1. We'll start with Member Crocker.
I'm sorry.
18.1.
Okay,
Board,
very good.
Comments.
Yes. I'm just wondering if we have a new date for the liaison committee.
Oh, for city liaison
Correct.
committee? Do we have dates?
I noticed that they are doing construction work on Site 3 off of Cherry, and I'm wondering if the clock has started.
Yes.
And if that's the case, then I think that we've we've got a whole series of things we've got to get moving on. And so I was hoping that, I assumed that in January we should be able to work out some sort of time. Thank you. Thank you.
Member Preciado?
So this is where I will put my request that in the future, that for the interim reports, that they actually be included in attachments for the agendas in all meetings to give everyone the ability to discuss. I mean, I understand in terms of work, but this is a formal process where people are reviewing the budget, and at the very minimum, we should have those 3 days.
Member Thomas?
Yeah, I realize that there's been a request that we get a report on the expenditures in Fund 40. I think it would be also important if we could do at that time also get a update on the budget for Fund 40, so we see the complete budget at a glance. The bond budget also has not been updated. We're starting to spend money out of the bond budget, but as far as I know, everything that was approved so far has been completed, and there's no new projects going forward, so we shouldn't be seeing any expenditures in the bond until we have a new budget that the board looks at and approves. Also, I think it would be good to get a staff report at some point about the adult ed program. We haven't really had one since the consortium funding came in. I don't think we understand much about the consortium funding, what programs are allowed and not allowed, and which ones, you know, how we're funding any programs that are not allowed in the consortium, whether they're self-funded. So I think to have an adult ed staff report would be a good idea. And finally, I went to CSBA convention. It was absolutely outstanding. There was a huge crowd, much bigger than I remember in the past. Fantastic workshops. I learned a lot. I passed some information on to Mr. Sanchez about measuring students. Yeah, measuring assessment results and some of the vagaries and imperfections in that whole process. So important to help the public understand that these numbers are imprecise, and they probably will be for several years until the SBAC gets kind of calibrated over time. So with that, that's it for me.
Thank you. And I would like to echo Member Thomas' request. And look at the first interim report, from 21, 25, and 40, there's a relatively sizable amount within those capital funds. And so I'm not necessarily as interested as far as the line item expenditures, but I do want to, at a future date, hopefully soon, just hopefully capture the staff's vision of what we are going to do with this block of money. Because what I've noticed happen over the past years is that we've had this chunk of money and slowly it's eroded, and there were the expenditures, but you know it's being tapped and used and whatnot. But if we can get some sort of we know where we're at with these funds, but what's the plan moving forward, especially with Area 3 being developed, and we've spoken in the past about a new elementary school within that area. What's the general overall, vision and plan for this expenditures in the near future? Okay. But with that, I would like to wrap up and thank you, my colleagues and members of the public and whatnot. I am finishing my my role as president, as Member Crocker mentioned earlier. No one has any more power than anyone else. This was my turn this past year, and I thank you for your patience and collegiality, and I'll be on the other side of the dais come January. So congratulations, Ms. Thomas, and you do a wonderful job.
Oh, one more thing. I think we still need to appoint ourselves to various committees. We usually do that in January, do we? Okay.
Yeah, January. Thank you. So with that, we have Superintendent's concluding comments.
I think my only comment tonight is actually simple. And I think that what I would like to do is just invite Tommy to come have coffee with me before the end of the week. Let's keep it simple. How about that? That's it.
Great. Thank you. It is 9:24. Meeting is adjourned.